Obviously, we got a dual threat quarterback too, so it's nothing that we haven't seen. I'm still not sold on Mario Cristobal.
They want to see the touchdown celebration.
You can hold the receipts, I guess. I get a crack pipe for works cited. I get shut up bitch. I get there's no talking. It's just degrading, demoralizing, berating, belittling.
Welcome, college football fans, to another Inside Insight episode, the series where we bring on a content creator or superfan that covers Miami's opponent each week so they can tell us a little bit more about their team. And I'm not going to lie, this has probably been the most difficult time I've ever had getting a guest on for this show. But Randy stepped up to the plate and wasn't afraid to talk USF football and put his face on YouTube. So Randy, if you could take just a moment and tell the viewers a bit about yourself and how they can follow you if you want to.
All right, guys. Keep it real simple. I actually obviously went to USF. I graduated in spring of 2008. So I was very fortunate to be there during the Big East Matt Grothy years. A lot of fun, a lot of great games. I got into this about 3 years ago on Twitter, just chasing down college football news from all the major conferences and realignment. And when I passed information from people that I trust and respect and different media consultants and stuff, I'll put generic stuff out there on Twitter and then more specific stuff sometimes in my DMs. But I have fun with it. But mainly, if you want to follow me, if you just want college football news, I go through all the different teams and I post stuff. So I'm not biased towards one team. I do love my USF, but anything SEC, Big 10, ACC, Pac-12, you name it, Big 12, I try to find articles and post it. So if you follow along, you might find something interesting for your team. All random stuff too.
All right. So what I'll do, guys, is Randy's socials will be up above his head, but I will also link all of that stuff in the description and in my pinned comment as well. So make sure that you guys go show him some love. Now, before we get into the football talk, Randy, I know that you've seen the heated interactions between our two fan bases on social media. I was a bit surprised. I didn't expect it to, go like this, but it's been a good time. I've actually enjoyed it. But I wanted to ask you, in regards to USF fans specifically, the fan base as a whole on social media anyways seems very confident. And I just want to ask you, is this a front or is it real confidence? And if it's real, what's the main source driving this level of confidence?
Best way to answer that is it's coming, right? And what I mean by that is, as you win games, we went through a tumultuous period, as you guys know, where we lost a bunch of games for many years in a row with bad coaching. So we were kind of down, but a lot of us, especially on social media, were around in the Big East days. We know what we're capable of, and we know and when you have Florida talent, you can compete with everybody day in and day out. Our 3 stars are better than 4 or 5 stars from the Northeast, right? So as long as they're coached up. So we feel we can be in any game, and we've seen it. We've won those games. We've beaten Miami. We've beaten Florida State. We've beaten Notre Dame. We've beaten West Virginia. We've beaten Auburn. You know what I mean? So we have a history where we have confidence going in. The problem is it was gone for about 15, 16 years, and it's starting to come back now. A lot of it has to do with our coach, Alex Golish. He is fearless. He is young. He's blue collar. He doesn't believe in moral victories, the stuff that you want to hear. And some of his speeches before games is unbelievable. I don't know if you watched the Alabama game 2 weeks ago, but that beginning speech, man, had me wanting to run through a brick wall for the man. So that's where confidence comes from. And as a son of a coach that was an AD and a collegiate coach and one of the most winningest coaches in junior college baseball history, I'm telling you, coaching makes a huge difference. You can win a lot of games that you have no business winning when your coaching is there. And I know that from top to bottom, this is the best coaching staff we've had since the Leavitt years, hands down.
Okay, fair. And I will say that, trash talk aside, I do have a lot of respect for Alex Golish. That's a guy that I've kind of followed and kept up with as well. And I understand why USF fans are very excited to have him be the head coach there for the football team. But I do know that also you guys are pretty pumped over Byron Brown, the quarterback. Can you tell me a little bit more about this guy? Because for Canes fans, they're looking at the numbers and they're seeing low passing numbers and low touchdowns, but really high rushing yards. This is a true dual threat type of guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing about Brown that you're going to find is he makes very few mistakes. He basically takes what the defense gives him. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, playing against the front of Alabama,
That's
he
big
wasn't given
boys.
much. He wasn't given much. That's to me a top three defensive unit in the country, along with Texas and Georgia. I've watched hundreds of hours of all the different teams. So their front four, Alabama's way better than people realize on defense, and their secondary might be the best in the country. With that being said, you know what? They were draped all over our wide receivers. They shut down our tight ends. Unfortunately, you're not going to pass much. And the other thing that really screwed him is, I don't know if you watched that first half, but he had 3 wide open touchdowns. And instead of leading the receiver with his passes, the receivers led him and he overthrew them and screwed it up bad. It's week 2. It takes a while sometimes for quarterbacks, as you know, Coop, to get in a rhythm. Spurrier used to say it take till week 3 or 4 before offenses would really start to click. But credit to Alabama. I mean, they didn't give him much room to throw. And unfortunately, I will tell you and we'll get into it in a little bit, but our offensive line, they're very good at run blocking. But when it comes to pass blocking, they're still young. And I don't know, like I said, it's hit or miss sometimes with them. So we'll see how that goes. But that's why his passing numbers have been down. Like I said, we played Bethune-Cookman. He ran like 4 different types of plays throughout the game. They kind of didn't do much with him because they didn't want to get him injured. Bama was a whole different animal. And then last week against Southern Miss, he looked like he was in complete control of the offense. It's the best I've seen him in a USF uniform as far as his checkdowns, his reads, where he took the ball. It was awesome. But again, it's Southern Miss, and they were not very good last year. So take that as a grain of salt. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, the man can definitely rack up some rushing yards. I saw he had triple digits against Bama. I believe he actually leads the team in total rushing yards so far this season. So it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. And as you said, we'll dive a little bit deeper here in a bit because, Canes fans are foaming at the mouth when looking at Miami's D-line, coming into this matchup. But we'll get into that here in just a moment. So, Randy, this is a question where a lot of people are very eager to answer the first half, but then they kind of hesitate when it comes to the second half of the question. But I like to ask to see if people will be honest. So could you tell me what you believe is USF's biggest strength right now, but also their biggest weakness? And it doesn't even have to be going into this game specifically, just in general.
Well, in general, obviously, look, here's the deal. The heart and soul and pulse of our team is Byron Brown, right? Where he goes, we go. Um, and he's the biggest strength of our offense. Let's be honest. If you don't have a quarterback in college football, you don't have an offense, and you're not going to win many games. So the big thing that he did in the offseason is he put on close to 25 pounds of muscle to sustain the hits. So when he runs, he's not, getting knocked out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest thing he did. And weakness-wise, I'm still a little concerned with our pass blocking for our offense, right? So if you go back and watch the Alabama game, because you can't really look at the other teams who played because they don't have the athletes to really put pressure on them.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just notice they got pressure on Brown, and he didn't have enough time to set his feet. And that was on the offensive line. Again, credit to Alabama's defense. Like I said, they're as good as anybody I've seen in the country so far.
Can you tell me specifically here about Miami, what would worry you most going up against this Miami Hurricanes team? Like, is it Miami's D-line? Is it the potential Heisman caliber quarterback Cam Ward? What would worry you most about going up against the Canes?
Here's the deal. Obviously, we got a dual threat quarterback too, so it's nothing that we haven't seen. And I know if you talked about it earlier. I had that tweet that went viral, and everybody was heated over with Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. What worries me is if Cam Ward plays within his system. Right. So looking at some numbers at Wazoo last year, right? People don't know this, but he was 6-1 when he stayed in his lane, as they said, right? He didn't make mistakes, had tremendous passing yards, very low interceptions. He had a great first game, start to the season. But then if you go and look at the last half of Wazoo last year, he was 1-4. And I tried to go back and figure out, I was like, what happened, right? So when you look at the game film, you realize he started pressing and he got outside of the box, and then he would try to make things happen and force things that just didn't make sense. And he would sometimes he'd fumble the ball, he'd throw an interception. He is at his best when he just stays right in his bread and butter, and that's the game plan. The little, 6 to 8 yard medium range pass up the middle, little flicker, little run, 3-4 yards here, 3-4 yards there. Doesn't try to do too much. If he plays like that, that worries me as a USF fan, because you know what? At the end of the day, he has shown, and you've seen it already for the first 3 games, when he stays in his zone, he doesn't make mistakes. So if South Florida can't figure out a way to make him force things, it's going to be a long day for USF.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, from a Canes fan, I know we're only 3 games in, and we've been open and willing to admit that Florida's not that great of a football team, and we've played FAMU and Ball State. But after what we've dealt with, I hate to name drop, but Tyler Van Dyke, prayers up. Hopefully, I know he had a season-ending injury the other day.
Yeah, it was rough.
But after what we've dealt with him, we're ready to crown Cam Ward. We wish we could have him for 3 or 4 more years after what we've seen, even if it's just these first 3 games. But it will be interesting to see, like you said, if USF, you guys have some speed, see if they can make him uncomfortable a little bit here. But can you give me, for you guys, for the Bulls, an impact player on each side of the ball that Miami fans should keep an eye on this Saturday?
So we have a guy, a defensive tackle named Bluey.
Okay.
He really sets the tone on the defensive line, because if he's stopping the run up the middle, it allows our defensive ends to get off the block and get in the backfield. In the Alabama game, he did a phenomenal job taking on 2 blockers at once, which really freed up our DNs, and we got speed on the outside. So that's why we did really well for about 3.5 quarters against Alabama. But if Miami finds a way to move out of the way or take him out of the game, that would hurt us bad, at least on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, I know it's beating a dead horse, but there's 2 things you want to look for. Number one is if USF gets the tight ends involved from a pass catching perspective, right? So if he's throwing to the tight ends and they're catching passes, that usually bodes well for that he's hitting his receivers as well. So keep that in mind. The other thing I would say is Sean Atkins, and not just from a wide receiver standpoint, but you probably saw it in the Southern Miss game last week. He will be known to catch a pass in the backfield, turn around, and then throw a touchdown pass when the defense breaks down and and they're wide open. So he's done that a bunch at USF in big games. He's very confident. He missed the one last week at Southern Miss. It's actually his first one that he's missed. He's made every single one besides that in the last 2 years. So look for that as a trick play. As you saw against Southern Miss, South Florida will also fake a punt. But Sean Atkins, at least I would say on offense, is an X factor because he can do multiple things. And if he gets hot early, it opens up the door for all the other wide receivers. But those are my 2 big impact players on both sides of the ball for South Florida. They're maybe not fan favorites, but they're the ones that I'm going to look and watch for because I think it's going to have a huge impact on the game and whether South Florida can stay with Miami or not.
Could you give me maybe a big key for USF to win this game? Again, I know you've kind of already talked about that, but
so here's the deal. Point spread's 16.5, 17 points. Rightfully so. Miami's earned that right to be favored that heavily. Because let's be honest, that's a big favorite. This game, to me, we know Miami's going to score their points, right? If South Florida's defense shows up, they might limit Miami. Let's just say, I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say they limit Miami to 24 points, right? Well, this game is going to come down to South Florida's offense versus Miami's defense. Because at the end of the day, if you score 24 points against our defense, but we can't muster more than a field goal and we lose 24-3, you still blow past the spread and blow us out, right, on paper. So to me, we know Miami's going to get their points. The question is, can Byron Brown hit his wide receivers? If he hits his wide receivers, this is going to get very interesting, and it will go to the final fourth quarter. I promise you that. But if he's not hitting his wide receivers, it's going to be a long day for South Florida's offense. So again, to me, the whole game just comes down to South Florida's offense for Miami's defense. Depending on what happens there, we'll know in the first, and I'm just saying because we know the plays are scripted the first 15, 20, we'll know halfway through the second quarter where this game is headed.
Okay, yeah, and I think that in my breakdown and preview for this game, I said that I believed USF probably needs to score 30 plus in this game, just because as a Canes fan, and you even mentioned that, I firmly believe that Miami is still going to put up a lot of points in this game. So I think that they're going to have to be able to match Miami offensively, and it's going to have to be 30 or 35 plus if they want to beat the Canes on
Correct.
Saturday. Do
Mhm.
you think that USF O line, assuming that they come out there, they play 4 quarters, they stay healthy, are they up for the challenge against this Miami D line? Can they handle
Yes.
it?
Yeah, we had over almost 250 yards rushing against Alabama on the road in Tuscaloosa against what I thought was a great defense. Again, as I said earlier, our strength of our offensive line is run blocking. It's their bread and butter. But again, it goes back to what I said. It doesn't matter. We could run for 400 yards in Miami. If we aren't connecting with our wide receivers, we're not going to score touchdowns, and you guys are still going to run away with the game. So, like, I don't think Kane fans need to worry so much about our run game. Yeah, it matters to us, I guess. But at the end of the day, I got to see that we're connecting on offensive passes and we're getting chunk plays, because without that, it doesn't matter how much we run for you against you guys. You're still going to whoop us.
Do you have any bold predictions you want to throw out there for this game for fun? I want to make it known for fun. Any crazy, wild, bold predictions? And I can break the ice if you want, or if you've got something in mind, you can say it.
Oh, actually, so my bold prediction is I you guys can laugh and hammer me and you can hold the receipts, I guess. But I have South Florida winning 34-28 on the final series of the game. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think the players know what's at stake. As I said before, the Big Ten officials are watching this game for both teams, right? There's a lot. The university's on the line. There's a lot of communication going back channels between those officials, and not just Miami, but also USF. So there's a lot on the game. And you mentioned earlier in your podcast, not this one, but the one earlier tonight, they had a record-breaking student section. My
Mm-hmm.
understanding is it was over now 20,000 student tickets that were claimed, and we're going to be at 55,000 for the game. It is the whole stadium, at least for that angle, is sold out. I don't know what the ratio is yet between Miami and USF fans. That'll be really interesting. I will say our student section is incredible. They are loud. They are into it. They will not leave, even if we're down several touchdowns. They will make life miserable for Cam Ward, especially when he has to go that way. But that's my prediction. I know that one thing that Alex Golish has shown over the last 2 years is South Florida plays up to their competition. They didn't last week. They got punched in the mouth and they looked flat for the first quarter, but then they outscored Southern Miss 49-7 or 3, I think. But just every time South Florida's played a big opponent, they've shown up. And that's coaching. And I know that, like, one other thing I was going to mention is the one thing difference between this year and last year is South Florida has been outstanding in tackling an open space. And again, we have two corners that now we can drape on an island on wide receivers, and we don't have to worry about it. So our linebackers are free to roam. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, at the end of the day, I would love that my prediction comes true. I hope it does. But I think realistically, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the game's going to be close all 4 quarters. The one problem that USF has, and you probably alluded to this earlier, but we're running between 83 and 87 offensive plays a game, right? So we are fast, we are quick. The downside to that is if we score fast or we go 3 and out quick, because we average almost 3 plus plays a minute, which exhausts the defense if we're driving up and down the
Yeah.
field. The
Yeah.
problem for us, though, is if we go 3 and out in under a minute, our defense is back in, right? So one of the problems we ran in with Alabama is we got to the final 5 or 6 minutes and we had, I think, 2 or 3 like missed assignments. And next thing you know, we're down 21 points, right? That's why the game went so lopsided. We literally missed 3 assignments and it cost us 21 points. It was just a mental lapse, but we were exhausted. We were 54 minutes in of being out there and probably, 35, 40 minutes of the game. I'm sorry, but if your defense is out there that long, they're going to run out of gas in the fourth quarter. That's just the way it is. So because of the way of our offense is structured, we have to score. And if we're not scoring, we're not going to win.
And it's interesting that you bring up USF playing up to competition because, hey, I'll be a level-headed Canes fan here. Historically speaking, Miami plays down to the competition. And we've seen that
Correct.
time and time again. Now, we're hoping that year 3 under Mario Cristobal, he's got a lot more of his guys in here. They're hoping that that's not the case any longer. But it's interesting that you mentioned that.
Well, and I want to give credit to Miami too. I mean, let's be honest. On paper, this is the best team you had in probably 20 years. I mean,
Easily, yeah.
if we're being real, and I grew up, and I will be the first one to tell you, as a South Florida fan, the greatest Miami Hurricanes team, or greatest college football team I ever saw was 2001 Hurricanes. Like, there's never been a team before or after that had that much talent. I mean, I think you guys had, I don't even know. I think I almost want to say the entire team got drafted
It's
over the next
ridiculous
few years.
numbers.
Like,
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. But when you look back, to me, that is the greatest accumulation of talent was the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. So again, I grew up in the 90s and 2000s and 80s when Miami was just, they were Miami. They would, win a couple national championships, get busted for cocaine and drugs, and then be back 5 years later to win a couple more national championships. And the old joke was that if the cocaine was flowing, Miami was winning titles. All right. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but that's what it was. And when Miami's good, college football is good. They're a blue blood. You know what I mean? So I give them credit. I know, look, I'm realistic. I know what we're going up against. I also am very big on scouting teams and understanding realistic. I take my green and gold goggles off, right?
Fair.
So I'm very realistic going in this game, but I know ball because I grew up around it.
Mhm.
And I understand the behind the scenes that goes into scheming and game planning and X's and O's. And another thing that I'm not sold on, and again, Canes fans can either agree or disagree, but I'm still not sold on Mario Cristobal. I don't think he's the best in-game manager. And I know that sometimes when it comes to delegating with his assistants, I've heard stories where they're not always on the same page in game, right? So I'm curious to see what he does. He can go and win the big game. That's never been his knock. But at FIU, Oregon, and even at Miami, prime example last year, Georgia Tech was just putting it together, and there's no way you should have lost that game against Georgia Tech last year. That's mind blowing. So, but that's coaching. That's not your players, right? That it is what it is. So I don't know what we're walking into. I will tell you that it will be loud. I will tell you that the players understand the gravity of the situation of who they're playing. They respect Miami. You're going to get our best shot. We're going to try to punch you in the mouth early and often. But at the end of the day, games aren't won on paper.
We did already talk some numbers, so if
Mhm.
you don't mind, obviously I disagree a bit here.
Fair.
I've got Miami 38-17. Not quite as close as what you had there. What was your score prediction again? You said
34-28.
34-28. Okay. I did also want to give my bold prediction here. You mentioned the loyalty with the students and with the fans. I think that the upper deck that they opened is going to clear out about halfway into the fourth. So I think that all the bragging with all the additional students and fans and stuff showing up, I think they're going to be hitting the door. I think they're going to be on their way out. They want to show up. They want to see Cam Ward play football. Everybody's talking about him. He's the talk of the town right now. They want to see the touchdown celebration. That's going to continue to blow up.
Yeah.
And then once they get down 2-3 touchdowns, they're going to head out. But we're going to see. We're going to see.
I know you kind of said it, but if you go back and look, I've never deleted any of my tweets. I hold myself accountable. If I'm wrong, I own it. I even made a bet with one guy, I think, to do 50 push-ups.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, dude, like, you know what? I like to engage, but I don't run for nothing. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. And hey, you know what? Shake your hand, salute you, and say, hey, you whooped our ass. And excuse my language, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like, it is what it is. I own it. One of the things South Florida actually did this offseason for conditioning, which has made a huge difference on the defensive side of things. That's, I said, we were night and day different from last year. Is we went back and used the same conditioning program the national championship Hurricanes used to use in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
One of our assistant strength conditioner coaches brought it back, and we put our guys through that strenuous workout that they used to do 25 years ago or whatever it was. And it's actually made a huge difference for our stamina, agility, and strength training. And also just our defense is a huge beneficiary already this year. So kudos to Miami Hurricanes. They were doing a lot of things decades ago that was well in advance of their time.
You know how we do. We set the standard around here. That's what we do.
Fair.
So again, guys, you saw our score predictions for this game. I did want to close on just asking you just two quick questions here. I saw that they had released some new renderings and things for your guys' stadium. I just basically wanted to ask, this is such an obvious question, but you guys are pretty pumped about that, right? Getting a new stadium?
Look, we are. I mean, here's the thing. I'm sure you guys can relate. Like, you got to have an on-campus stadium to build culture, Like you have to, and without it, it just never feels the same. Never really feels like you're home. The fans are kind of wishy washy sometimes. You got to have it. So yeah, on that regard, we're pumped. We know that it was required from some of the big Power Four conferences. They gave us basically a to-do list, and they said, "Hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z." So we went to work doing all that. Our stadium is going to be 35,000 with up to 40,000 with standing room only. It can expand, I believe, up to 50 or 55,000, but obviously that's down the road. We want to make sure that we sell it out with premium seating, whatever.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the Northwestern concept now, where it's less seating, but you sell out every game. It looks good on
That makes
TV,
sense, yeah.
and they can charge more. But we're spending originally the stadium was 340 million. What recently changed, I thought was interesting, is that the other day they had a board meeting and they actually kind of left the price up in the air. In other words, we've gotten word they may spend even more. We've raised 150 million for it already, so we're financing 200 million. It's going to include a 60 or 70 million dollar football operations center that's going to be built first. And the stadium should be done around May or June, give or take permitting and all that stuff of 2027, in time for opening up the season in 27 against the Louisville Cardinals at home. There's a lot of things happening right now for USF behind the scenes between the ACC and the Big Ten, but for the Big Ten to be a realistic opportunity in the coming years, because a lot of people think I'm nuts. I'm not. I don't just say stuff to say stuff.
I am. I'm nuts, but I don't know about
um,
Randy.
No, well, I try to be a straight shooter, but we have to win. We got to be consistently 8+ wins a year for several years. We hit every other metric the Big Ten wants. We're a large university. We have almost 400,000 alumni. We're in the Tampa market, which is a top 11 market. We're AAU. We have 50,000 students. We hit everything that they want, and our cancer research, it works phenomenal with their cancer consortium for the Big Ten. And we bring them in billions of dollars a year for the AAU for cancer research. So presidents make decisions, but it's harder for them. It's a lot easier for them to go to the other presidents and say, "Hey, we'd like to bring USF and Miami in a package deal. This is what they bring to the table. Both are winning. Both are doing well." I still think that's a real possibility by 2030, where we would be a package deal with you guys in the Big
Okay.
Ten. Again, let people laugh and speculate all they want,
Oh,
but I'm hearing, I hear things, and I'm telling you, it's from people that are credible, that I trust, and that I've built relationships with over years. But South Florida has to win on the field. Bottom line. You wanted to know what my thought were. My thought was of Miami Hurricane fans so far. Remember that?
yeah, yeah. Like,
So here's
great
what I will
people,
tell you.
right? Nice, welcoming,
Listen, you know what's funny?
handsome.
The people that are not from Miami, that are Miami Hurricanes fans, I've had nothing but great interactions from. But you know what drives me nuts is the interactions I've had with Miami fans from Miami. Like, here's the thing: you'll tweet and talk ball or whatever, and you'll rebuttal anything I say, just like a lot of those fans. But the
Yeah.
ones that are straight from Miami, bro, I get a crack pipe for works cited. I get shut up bitch. I get, like, there's no talking. It's just degrading, demoralizing, berating, belittling. Like, it's wild, dude.
I,
They go straight for the jugular. And I mean, I walk out there like I feel like I got band-aids all over my face. Like I've taken 27 punches to the jaw, dude. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Like, it's wild when they come from the deep south in Florida, man. They are a whole different ball game. I was just like, wow, man. Like, you guys don't hold nothing back.
Randy, we appreciate you, man.
Go Bulls, guys. Go Bulls.
Go
Hey,
Canes. We'll see you
hey,
soon.
good luck.
Let's go,
All right.
man.
Thank you again, Coop. I appreciate it.
Hey, we appreciate you, man.